This video covers using Outreg and Estout to make publication quality tables from Stata. So the first thing we would do is install Outreg and Estout. I'm going to set my working directory. So the dataset we're going to be using for these examples comes from Page Fortna's Peacekeeping and Civil Wars. I'm going to pull this in directly from the web. So I'm going to be examining the relationship between conflict recurrence and truces as a war outcome. So I'm going to regress our y variable, which is short-lived 365, which is a dummy variable, with the value of 1 if the conflict recurred before the end of a calendar year. And then our independent variable is truce. And this is a dummy variable. 1 means the outcome of the Civil War was a truce, 0 means all other sorts of outcomes. So the first thing we're going to do, as usual, is look at some summary statistics of our main variables of interest. And also run a crosstab. It's important to always examine your variables before you start moving on to more advanced analyses. So we're going to run our first simple regression, and since our dependent variable is binary, we're going to run a logit model. You're going to learn a bit more about this at the end of the course, and then it's going to be extensively covered in MLE next semester. So don't worry if you can't interpret the coefficients for now. So until you cover this more, the first thing that you want to look at is whether or not there's a positive or negative sign on our independent variable. So we can see that the coefficient is positive, and it's statistically significant, the standard 95% confidence level. So truce seems to have a positive impact or increases the likelihood of conflict recurrence. So to use Outreg, we're going to start with something very simple, and it's just the Outreg command, then using, and then whatever we want to name our file. In this case, I'm just going to name it conflict1. So you can see it produces this nice table, and if we go into our working directory, you see a Word document with the same name, and so it's pushed out this table directly into Word. So if that's how you prefer to write up your results, you can just push out tables right to Word, and it's pretty simple. So the standard for Outreg is to produce these z-statistics. It's going to be calling them a t-statistic because that is the OLS standard. Logit, it's actually your z-statistic. If we want to change this to report the standard errors, all we have to do is add se. I've also added this comma replace, which is telling me to erase the old file named conflict1 and replace it with our new output. Otherwise, I would have to rename this file. So I can run this. You can see it's changed these to the standard errors. And if we go into our working directory again, see that it's replaced the file conflict1 with our new table reporting the standard errors. So next we're going to add some control variables. Theoretically, we expect that this variable named pkdom, which stands for peacekeeping, it's also a binary variable with 1 for peacekeeping operations and 0 otherwise. We expect this to be correlated with the outcome of the war itself, and it probably affects the likelihood of conflict recurrence as well. So it's important that we add this into our model. So if we run our line of code, see that true still has a positive impact on conflict recurrence. It's still statistically significant at the 95% confidence level. And now we've added peacekeeping. This has a negative effect on conflict recurrence. So the presence of peacekeeping operations diminishes the likelihood of civil conflict recurrence. This is also statistically significant at the 95% confidence level. So if we'd like to output this into Word, we can add merge, and this will add the results from the first model and the second model into one table. We can also make some other changes like adding a title in the column, as well as changing the decimal places. So this will make 4 decimal places for truces, 3 for PK, and the constant. And this is not particularly important in this example, but it might be useful for you down the road. So we can run this. We can go back into our working directory, and we see our models. So if you'd like to reference further documentation, I've provided this website. So now we're going to transition into using Estout, and this will give us, we're going to see how you can use it to produce the code that you can put directly into LaTeX to create some very nice tables as well. So these first 2 lines of code use something called EST-STO, and what this does is store the estimates from these models. So this is our first model that we ran previously, and then this is our second model where we added our peacekeeping operation dummy variable. So then it stores both of these, and then we use Estout, and then style and tech produces our LaTeX code that we can then paste into whatever program we like to use. I use WinEdit. So another option instead of using Estout is Stab, which is just a wrapper for Estout, and the syntax is simpler, so some people prefer it. So we can run this line, which is just Stab, and if we click on this, this is our LaTeX file, which for me will open directly into WinEdit. So this is our code we could use to produce the table. So if we wanted to make some modifications, again, like changing it to report the standard errors, again, it's just SE. You can also add the pseudo Rsquared. For low-jet models, instead of reporting the regular Rsquared, you're going to want to report pseudo Rsquared. So you can run this, and you can see the differences. So there's a lot of other modifications we can make. In this line of code, again, we're reporting the standard errors, pseudo R-squared. We're also adding a title, conflict recurrence, and we're going to change these from just numbers to actually saying model 1, model 2. You can say whatever you like. And we're going to add a note about our data source being from page 4 now. And again, this pushes it out directly into LaTeX. So it's very useful that way. Run the code. We can click on this, or we could look it up in our working directory, and you see it. So all we have to do now is copy and paste this into the LaTeX shell that I provided for you on Elms. Then we press our PDF button. And great, we have our table.